Hello. Some random and extemporary thoughts from Adolf P. Rickenbacker. I had a friend once, his name was Jerry. He was a Dubliner. He had that accent, and when I met him, I think he'd freshly come out of prison. He had served 6 years in the Channel Islands on the island of Jersey. Uh, uh, for pulling a gun on a guy and shooting it. And it was a fight over a woman. Nothing new there. Story as old as time. Jerry was a bit of an Irish nationalist, and he had a tattoo on one of his calves of an IRA man in camouflage gear with a hood, holding a gun in the air, obviously doing a one gun salute over an Irish Republican grave or something. But it told you what he was. Anyway, Jerry and I used to work together in construction, and we were on a job in a Welsh town called Aberystwyth, which is just about it's about probably the most inaccessible town in Wales, and it's a holiday resort. Lots of people come there during the summer. It's always full of tourists in the good weather. So while Jerry and I were working there, we were staying in a pub. So one Saturday night, it was a Saturday night, we were sitting in the pub and a load of tourists came in. They were English, and pretty rowdy, having fun, on holiday. And they were followed a bit later by half a dozen, 8 Welsh people. It turned out these people were returning from an Eisteddfod, which is a Welsh cultural event in North Wales, and stopped in for a drink on their way home. So as soon as they realised they were English, let's go back a little bit. In the 1970s, there used to be an advert on British television extolling the virtues of coal, and the tagline of the advert was "Come home to a real fire." At the time, Welsh nationalists were pretty pissed off about English people buying up cottages in Wales and using them as holiday places, leaving them empty for 9 months of the year. And so during those 9 months, the Welsh nationalists took to arson, burning the cottages down. So there was a billboard somewhere, and it had this coal advert on it, and it said, "Come home to a real fire," and some wag had written underneath that, "Buy a cottage in Wales." Funny. So anyway, these Welsh people turned up in the pub, speaking Welsh. They were all Welsh speakers, and they heard me and Jerry talking, both Irish. So they knew we couldn't speak Welsh, so they were speaking English to us. But when the English tourists tried to speak to them, they turned round and, "Ke?" And speak only Welsh to the English. The English really got pissed off about this. And they were complaining to me and Jerry, why are they speaking English to you, but they won't speak English to us? We just, I know nothing. It was obvious. Welsh nationalists, the English in their country, and so on. So later on, after the English tourists had left, Jerry and I were having fun with these Welsh speakers, and they sang the complete lyrics of more Irish rebel songs than I had ever heard. These were Welsh people. And I thought I knew all the Irish rebel songs, and so did Jerry. But half the time they were leaving us behind. We were trying, we knew the odd few words of some of the songs. And that was sort of a cultural coming together of Irish nationalists and Welsh nationalists. They understood us, we understood them. My paternal grandmother came from what's known as a Gaeltacht area in County Donegal, which is in northwest Ireland. Her first language was Gaelic, and she had trouble. My father told me once she had trouble with the English language until her dying day in 1939, 1940. So my dad was bilingual. Anyway, now follows a poem given bilingually. First in Gaelic, and then the English version of it. It was written by a guy called Patrick Pearse, who was executed by the British in Dublin on the 3rd of May 1916. He wrote this poem in 1912. He was a nationalist, he was a lawyer, a teacher, a poet, a writer, all-round Renaissance man. But the English executed him for his part in the Easter Rising in 1916. He was actually one of the leaders. And he wrote this poem in 1912 describing Ireland. And it goes something like this. Misha era, Shinamay in an Hailiach Bera, Mor Machlor, Meiduruk Kuhulam Kroga, Mor Manayer, Machwan Hain do Yela Maher, Misha era, Uigni May, Nan Hailiach Bera. In English, that goes, I am Ireland. I am older than the old woman of Bear. Great is my glory, I who gave birth to Cuchulainn the brave. Great is my shame, my own children have sold their mother. I am Ireland. I am lonelier than the old woman of Bear. I learned that poem in Gaelic almost 50 years ago, by rote. Gaelic is a language I always would have loved to learn. I suppose I still could. But the Irish language and culture were taken from us from the time the Normans first set foot in the 1090s or the 1190s? I can't remember. But that's a random extemporaneous thought for another day. Thanks for listening.